Right, welcome back after lunch. If you're coming in, if you could grab a seat, that would be fantastic. And lots of wheelie bags in the room now and in the luggage rack. If you want to steal some luggage, it's a great time to go and steal some. I'm joking, I'm joking. We've got our finale, of course, at 3:30, and we'll be revealing where we're going to be in 2023. I can tell you we're going back to March, so back to our regular schedule before COVID-19 disrupted everything. So back to March 2023. The exact city will be revealed at 3:30. Before that, we've got a classic session that always works here, the 30 Ideas in 45 Minutes with Nick. Before that, a fantastic session in this room about who's listening where. Please welcome Tom Webster. Tom.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. I made it, and I'm exhausted from making all of that pasta. I'm Tom Webster, Senior Vice President at Edison Research, and I'm going to talk a bit about podcasting today and how to grow podcasting. And it's certainly something at Edison that we track in multiple markets around the world, continues to grow year over year. Had a little bit of a COVID lockdown ending related hiccup, I think, in the US, but it is continuing to grow. But I want to start today by answering, I hope, what is one of the most frequently asked questions that I get about podcasting from people producing podcasts, how many of you are somewhere at your station producing podcasts, just so I get a sense? I can't see a thing, so I assume it's everybody. Thank you. But here's a question I often get. I get it from independents. I get it from people at large networks, at radio stations. And it's this. My downloads hit a plateau. How can I grow my audience? Now, I answer this in the wisest way that I know how. I Googled it. And as I Googled it, I realized just how many times this question has been asked. This question has been asked by podcasters and people producing podcasts. How can I grow my audience? It has been asked 1 novemdecillion times, one for every star in the universe. That's a lot of times it has been asked. I wrote it all out just for you. It's a very common question. How can I grow my audience? My downloads have hit a plateau. How can I grow my audience? And I'm going to tell you that there are a number of good answers to this that don't quite satisfy. There are a number of good answers to this that don't quite satisfy. And here they are. Cross-promotion and partnerships. Undoubtedly, you are already doing this. You are already doing this. You are cross-promoting. Many of you in this room have the incredible advantage over other podcasters that you can cross-promote on your airwaves. You can talk on your radio station about your podcasts. Certainly in America, that is done very, very successfully. So that's one way, and it's a good answer, right? You can buy ads. You can buy ads on podcast apps. You can buy ads on Spotify. You can buy ads on Facebook. It works to an extent, right? I think buying ads on podcast apps may work a little bit better, although your reach is smaller. But it does work to a certain extent. It is one way, I think, to grow your downloads. You can book guests with large social followings. Again, many of you in this room have the advantage of access to celebrities, perhaps, local celebrities in your market, in your country. So that's another way. There's, of course, search engine optimization, extremely important to make sure that your descriptions of the podcast, that it does what it says on the tin, and matches, and you can be found that way. And then, of course, my favorite answer is just keep plugging away, which means if it didn't work yesterday, it probably won't work today, but continue to do it, right? That is the just plugging away answer. But none of these really satisfy. None of these really satisfy, and I'll tell you why. It's this. When you ask people, how do you discover podcasts most often? Right? It's not through a Facebook ad. It's not through search engine optimization. It's not the number one answer. They're all answers. right? It's recommendations from friends and family. And podcasting is still very much a word-of-mouth medium. It is still very much spread by friends, someone telling somebody else, right? And in some cases, that friend might be a host. It could be cross-promotion. Yes, that does work. But it is recommendations that make the world of podcasting go round. And the reason why those other answers I showed you really don't satisfy is because how can I grow my audience is not exactly the wrong question, but it's too soon to ask that question. Because here's the real thing that you want to know. Why have my downloads hit a plateau, right? Why? Why did this happen? And I submit that while there may be many variables and many factors that go into a podcast reaching a plateau, there's ultimately one answer to that. And it's this. It is revealed by this 1979 Fabergé organic shampoo commercial that I have unearthed for you and brought across the Atlantic just for your viewing pleasure.
I told my friends try Fabergé shampoo, Fabergé organic shampoo. And they told their friends, 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 and they told their friends. Fabergé organic shampoo.
Thank you. I wish I could say that I made that. It's friends telling friends, right? It's people telling people about your podcast. That is how it spreads. And by the way, you can still buy vintage Fabergé organic shampoo. I found this on eBay for $38 from, where is this from? Ontonagon, Michigan, which must be the land that time forgot. You can still buy this original Fabergé organic shampoo. The reason why your downloads have hit a plateau is very, very simple. It's because people stopped recommending your podcast. So I want to talk a little bit in the time that I have about recommendability, and then I'll take some questions in case there's something you had hoped that I would cover that I failed to do. But I want to talk a little bit about recommendability and what makes your podcast recommendable to people, right? Well, the first thing, and this is the most important thing, and I think everybody in this room knows this, it's know who you are for. Know who you are for and why they are there. And I think most of you are doing a lot of radio station research. I've seen some great research that you've presented. Podcast research can be a little tricky, right? The audiences are smaller. It can cost a little bit more money. If you would like a head start, we made a survey for you at Edison Research, actually, which you can download for free. You don't have to sign up or give your email address or anything. It's edisonresearch.com. PM2021 is where you can still find it if you want that survey. But make sure that you're talking to listeners. Know what they expect from you. My very first boss in this business, Frank Cody, always told me, if you can figure out what people expect you to be and then be that thing, you'll be a success in this business, right? If you figure out what people are expecting and you be that thing, you'll be a success. Number two is to make the show easy to recommend. This is something that podcasting struggles with. Podcasting has all of these great tools to produce content, but it struggles with making the show easy to recommend. And people all the time will talk to me about podcasting's discovery problem. Does podcasting have a discovery problem? I don't think podcasting has a discovery problem. Your podcast might have a discovery problem, but I don't know that the medium has a discovery problem, right? But what it can do is take advantage of the tools that are already out there to make your show easier to discover. We produce research at Edison it was called the Podcast Consumer Tracking Report. This week it was rebranded to Edison Podcast Metrics. And it's a large rolling study. 8,000 people a year cycle through this who are weekly podcast consumers. And we ask them questions. We ask them what shows they listen to. We figure out what networks those shows belong to. It's a significant piece of research, ongoing subscription product that we do. And a year ago, almost 2 years ago, we asked, on which service do you most often listen to podcasts? And Apple Podcasts was number one at 25%, and then YouTube, and then Spotify. That continues to change. And now, if you ask people, what services do you ever use to listen to podcasts? Not often or all the time, but what services do you ever use? Guess what number one is? It's YouTube. It's YouTube. And you may not think of YouTube as a podcast client or as a podcast app, but it is. So why are people listening to podcasts on YouTube? And we did a little extra research here with our friends at NPR last year. We did a whole research project on YouTube and podcasts, and we discovered a few interesting things. First thing that we discovered, this is a little over 400 online interviews that we did. These are people that say they use YouTube most for podcasting. And when you ask it that way, it's still the third most often named platform after Spotify and Apple Podcasts. One of the questions that we asked was, suppose you heard about a podcast that you were interested in listening to, but didn't know where to find it. Where would you go first to try to find it? And we did not give any choices for this. It was unaided. Number one there is YouTube. 50% said YouTube, and another 30% said Google. That's a whole lot of the Alphabet company, right? That's a lot of Google saying that that is where they would go first to find a podcast. But 50% said they would go to YouTube first. Why? Because it's the best content search engine. And I'm not here to plug YouTube, but it is where people go to find content. It's where people go to find content. It's really easy to find content on YouTube. It's really easy to get content recommended to you on YouTube. And if I want you to find my podcast, I know you can find it on YouTube. You can search for it, right? You don't have to have an account with Spotify. You don't have to have a certain podcast client. I know you can find it. So YouTube is an incredibly important option here for discovery. Why do you listen to or even watch podcasts most often on YouTube? And these are some of the reasons that we were given. Because you already use YouTube to listen to or watch other types of content. There's no friction. They're already there. They're already there watching and listening to content. So why would they not want to watch and listen to a podcast there? They know how to use it. You can listen for free. That's obviously an option. You prefer listening to podcasts that include video. This is true for a lot of people. And I'm not saying that you have to have brilliant produced video, but it certainly helps, right? You are on YouTube. You can read comments. You want to make the most of your YouTube Premium account. A lot of people have signed up for a YouTube Premium account because they're tired of ads, right? That YouTube sticks them in all the time. It's really annoying. So lots and lots of people have subscribed to YouTube Premium. They're already paying for it, so they want to make the most of their subscription. So again, am I suggesting that your podcast has to be on YouTube? Yeah, I guess I kind of am, right? I guess I kind of am. It certainly is part of your strategy. And thinking about, even if it is an audio-only podcast, thinking about a visual strategy is all about helping your discovery. It's helping your discovery, and it's helping your recommendability, right? Some other statements that we asked people about YouTube. How much do you agree or disagree with each of these following statements? And these are the percentages that agree. Watching video along with audio improves the experience. 3/4 agreed with that. But I like the third one down there. It's easier to listen or watch podcasts on YouTube than on other platforms. Again, they're already there. It's really, really easy. It's easy to recommend to somebody as well. You can find it on YouTube. And the other thing I want to mention is Facebook. And Facebook just dismantled its podcast abilities. But that does not mean it's not incredibly important for podcasts and podcasting. Again, not necessarily to put your content there, because that's not necessarily the mode that people are in when they go to Facebook. But one thing about Facebook, it's declining. It is still incredibly used, right? 47% of social media users in the United States, this is from 2021, say that they use Facebook most often. It's no longer the majority, but it is a giant blue bar. But I would point out that for people that have never listened to a podcast, it is overwhelmingly the most often used social media platform, right? There on the bottom, 60% say that Facebook is the social media platform they use the most, right? And that tends to skew a little bit older. And again, these are people that have yet to discover a podcast. So whether your content is on Facebook or not, and Facebook has made that a little bit more difficult, it's still an important source of discovery and recommendability. So while your content may not be what ends up on these platforms, think about what you could put on these platforms to help people discover your podcasts, to help people recommend your podcasts. And what I would suggest for both of these is doing things that are native to those platforms, right? And I know in radio we often think of clips, and clips are okay, but if you've got somebody on YouTube, if you've got somebody on TikTok, for just a few seconds. Make a thing that is made just for that. Make a thing made just for that. Not a clip of something else, but make a thing that really sells what you're doing, sells the idea, sells the story, sells the personality, and people will then find your content later. Maybe they'll find it on YouTube. And then the last thing about recommendability and making your podcast more recommendable is always to master your craft. And I am delighted to be talking to a room full of professionals who are exceptional at making audio. And one of the questions that I get, though, even from people that have been in audio for years and years and years, is how long should my podcast be? Right? This is a very common question. How long should my podcast be? And I have a definitive answer for this. Usually you get some kind of a waffly answer from people that says, you know, well, it should be as long as it takes to tell the story, but no longer, or something like that. No, I'm going to give you the definitive answer to how long your podcast should be. This has also been asked 1 November decillion times, by the way. The answer to how long your podcast should be is this: shorter than the last one. Thank you. I get paid a lot of money to dispense this kind of advice. In America, and this may possibly be true or close to true in your country as well, we listen to about 4 hours of audio every single day, right? That hasn't changed a whole lot. That's not changed in the 8 years that Edison has been doing its share of ear research, which perhaps you may have seen. So when you're asking someone to add your podcast to the mix, you're basically asking them to fill what is already a fairly full glass, right? If they're already listening to 4 hours of audio per day and you're recommending to them an hour show, where is that going to go? Where is that going to go? It's going to replace something else. It may replace another show, it may replace video, or it may become an additional hour of audio consumption. But your best bet there, your best chance for success, is to make it as short as you can. And that is something that is true overwhelmingly right now because of what is eating everybody's lunch, and that is TikTok. TikTok is eating the world at the moment. Every medium is losing time to TikTok because even though a TikTok video might be 10 seconds long, I don't know about you, but I have spent hours watching them, hours, drooling on the couch, just watching with crisps in my lap, watching TikTok for, that's not a very attractive picture, is it? I'll erase, 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 erase. But TikTok is eating everybody's lunch. Even though the content on it is short, people will watch it for hours at a time. So, you know, making sure that your content is just as mercilessly short as you can possibly make it is going to increase your odds of success, and you're all very good at that. You're all masters of your craft. Be recommendable. Be recommendable. Make it easy for people to recommend your content. Make it as short as you can. Make it accessible everywhere. Put it on YouTube. Put it on Facebook, wherever you can put it, but be recommendable. And you'll end up looking as good as Farrah Fawcett did when she used Fabergé organic shampoo. Happy to take some questions, but thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be back at Radio Days. I've put my contact information in that QR code, which hopefully works, but I think I have a little bit of time. Yes, I do. I have time for questions. I left time for questions. So if anybody has them, raise your hand. There we go, in the front.
Hi, I'm Sean from Danish Radio. Thanks for a very inspiring talk. I'm in the lucky position to do both podcast and radio. Do you know any good examples of companies doing both that really use the synergy between the two platforms, uses the Flow Radio to promote the podcast, use the podcast to deliver extra content, stuff like that?
Yeah.
Because I feel there's a huge potential there, and we don't really know how to unleash it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 3 of the 10 largest podcasting companies by reach in America are broadcasters, right? iHeart, Odyssey, and Cumulus are all in that top 10. And I think iHeart in particular has done a very good job with promoting podcasts. And when they do it, they tend to do it with a singular focus. One of their first big organically grown shows was Will Ferrell's show, The Ron Burgundy Show. based on his character from Anchorman. And they just pushed the crap out of that on their radio stations. You could not listen to an iHeart station without hearing about not iHeart podcasts, but that podcast. And so that was the on-ramp to get people in. And then on the podcast, they can start to cross-promote other shows that they do and things like that. But they had one simple, clear message, and they just clobbered you with it on iHeartRadio. So, and I think Odyssey and Cumulus are also doing a pretty good job with that. So I think that's where I would look for inspiration. Other questions?
Hi, Tom. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Just to answer the chap who just asked a question at the front, podcast radio exists in the UK, and without going into too much detail, we use the trust that people have in radio to help people choose and discover podcasts. We're 24/7. We play samples of podcasts. We interview podcasters, and we're growing. So I thought I'll put a plug in for us. Thanks, Tom.
That's podcast radio at podcastradio.com.
We love that. Thepodcastradio.com, actually. But yes, thank you.
Thepodcastradio.com. Thanks for buying. Other questions? I've stunned you into silence. Yes, in the front. We have somebody in the front. Excellent, thank you.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. It was really nice. I was wondering, is there an offline method to grow your audience besides word of mouth?
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in outdoor, and especially here in Europe, I think outdoor really is quite clever. And I think outdoor can be, large billboard kind of campaigns, but it can also be a lot more humble than that. I think, if you have a sports podcast, there may be no better place to advertise it than on the walls of the restrooms in a sports bar, right? To have outdoor like that with a QR code, something that people will easily be able to get it. I know in Boston where I live, there are a lot of really clever campaigns at bus stops and kiosks and things like that. Again, with a QR code that gets people to the show immediately. So I'm a big believer in outdoor. You catch people out and about. And with a QR code there, they might just be able to listen in that moment, right? If they're waiting for a bus, you might grab them right then.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's a question down there. That's thepodcastradio.com. I was just killing some time.
Hello. I'm Kati from Finnish broadcasting company, and these 3 days we have learned and listened about a lot of 7 years ago everybody in public service wanted to be in third-party platforms, and now the thing is that we want to be in our own platforms, and now it's like this YouTube and Facebook and Spotify and all kind of this. So how can you compete with that? And then when you said that recommend in Facebook, it doesn't work in my experience that we just send links that go listen to in our platform.
Yeah, I mean, the audience is always right. Right? The audience is always correct. And I know this is something I hear from broadcasters all the time. We want people to come to our platform. Often the audience is not going to get that memo. Your best chance of success is to meet them where they already are. Right? You may want to build your own platform. They don't necessarily want to be, you have to be able to monetize where they are. Because then you're trying to change two behaviors at once. You're trying to say, listen to my new content that you've never heard before, and use this platform that you've never used. Obviously there's a place in every broadcaster's stable to have your own platform, your own app, but it's a part of a robust strategy. Does Facebook promotion and Facebook discovery work every time? No, I don't think it works particularly well if it's just an ad. But if it is a thing made for that place and time itself, it can be quite successful, right? So I do believe in social media promotion. But I believe in making something that actually fits the service that it's on and is not just a clip or an ad for something else that you'd rather people do. But I do think you have to have a strategy that meets people where they are. And if people are telling you that they like to consume content on YouTube, if people tell you that they like to consume content on TikTok, then you have to at least think about it, right? You have to at least think about meeting them where they are. Next question.
Hi, I'm Tom Rolls from the BBC, and I'm losing my voice. So sorry about that. Yeah, I had a question around what you're saying about short-form content, and we know that TikTok is great at what it does. Do you think, I suppose with your sort of future-gazing hat on, that there may become a point where actually people get kind of sick of short-form stuff, and if podcasts have ceded a lot of ground that they used to have in terms of providing rich, exploratory, in-depth content, that, we're thinking quite short-termist, and maybe we should, make sure we do focus on what podcasts can do really well, which is immersive storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on what your goal is, right? I'm not suggesting that you can't have longer form content. That would be a stupid thing to be quoted, I think. So hopefully nobody wrote that one down. But short form content isn't going to go out of style, right? And it's really about giving people the choice of media options. And if there is a shorter way to get through the front door to what it is you're trying to do, then I think having that option is going to help you, right? Yes, obviously, there's always going to be room for longer, more immersive things. Hardcore history podcasts are 7 hours long, and people will listen to them in segments and things like that. That of course is always true. But again, everything is about having as many lines in the water as you can, right? So if there is a shorter on-ramp to what you're doing that you can make available to people, make that available to people everywhere and anywhere they can trip over it. And so, any other questions? All right. I shall fly back to America a happy man. Thank you very much.
Well, less really is more, and what a great session. We've actually finished early, so you can go and run a marathon or get another cup of coffee or whatever. We're back in here at 2:45, so you've got just over half an hour or so, and we're going to have the 30 ideas in 45 minutes, and then the grand finale announcing where we're going to be next year. So see you back here at 2:45. Thank you very much.